and Ms. Hobson is going to share our slides to you.
Thank you. Sorry, I just noticed I wanted to make a tiny little change before we start. So back to it.
All right, so again, welcome everybody. We are so excited to kick off week 2 of test prep. And today we're going to briefly touch on downloading the secure browser. We're going to probably be touching on that every week just because we're hoping to have everybody prepared. And also be talking about practice and training. Ms. Hobson, would you mind advancing the slide? So our agenda, thank you. I apologize. My ability to advance things just is not here today. We're having a little bit of technology issues. So thank you everyone for your patience, and thank you, Ms. Hobson, for taking care of that. Our agenda today, we're going to just always review our mission and vision because that's what holds us together and kind of, you know, cements our community as a school. We're going to have a fun icebreaker. We're going to get you logged into a practice test that you'll complete after our session. And then we're going to go through just a couple of things to get you ready to download the secure browser, as well as check your device to make sure it's compatible with our testing system. So we're excited because it's going to be a really practical session. So what holds our school together and kind of gives us our mission forward is that we want to inspire and develop your scholars into innovative, creative, self-directed learners. And you are that team effort doing that with each of your scholars there at home. And we're so grateful for that. Our vision is to create, just like we're doing here, a collaborative virtual learning community where we're inspiring your scholars to appreciate the way with which arts and sciences nurture their curiosity for lifelong learning, and to prepare your scholars to take responsibility for their future success. And we're so thankful for that team effort that we get to have with each of you. So our values is that we call them the Arctic values: achievement, which is engaging and taking charge of your learning; respect, so being respectful in all interactions with fellow scholars, learning coaches, faculty, and staff; teamwork, where we're working together cooperatively with all persons involved in your education. So that's what we were just referencing. We are a united team for your scholars. Integrity is behave and following strong ethical principles, values, and academic honesty. And then finally, communication, frequently and proactively communicating with all persons involved in your scholars' education. So these are our core foundational values that we all follow in order to be just a really effective team.
All right. So we want to start off by doing a little reflection, whether you were here with us in person live or whether you watched the recording from last week. There was a ton of information. We went over so many things. We talked about tools. We talked about, gosh, what did we talk about? We talked about a lot of things. We got familiar with it. We talked about who takes the test. We talked about when. We talked lots of things. So we want to know if you will just pop it into the chat. It can be anything that sticks out or something that was new information for you. But what did you learn in last week's session? Just one thing, or maybe two things if you feel like they're really important and want to make sure everybody else gets those little bits of information too. But what's something new that you learned in last week's session? Or what's something you were reminded of that maybe you forgot, or anything like that? What stuck out as something important?
You're more than welcome to put it in the chat or grab the microphone. Please feel free to use the mic.
That's quite all right. They're available for you. And we'll, I think we've got a slide to go over that at the end, but we've got a resource to share with you where the recordings will be housed, so you can revisit those as you need to. no problem. It was very much an overview. It was kind of like the plane flying flying in the sky. It was very much an overview of testing and what to expect. And we'll go into more detail in some of these sessions. So not to worry. Does anybody remember anything in particular that you'd like to share? If you think of something as we go along and your memory is jogged a little bit, please do feel free to share that. We want to know what it is that you're learning, and we'd love for you to share that so that others can benefit from what you picked up last week as well. So as you think of anything, go ahead and drop it into the chat. Excuse me. Got a little frog in my throat. Okay. Let's jump into the next item, which is practice tests. And Brenda, I think you will take us through that.
So last week we had you just dip your toes in the water and look at Lumos. So for those of you that didn't get to look at last week's recording, we provided you a great test prep resource. It's not the actual test, but it's a site called Lumos, and they do 15-minute bite-sized practices that get your scholar familiar with the format, the verbiage, all of that without it being an actual test. So we introduced that last week and asked you to have your scholars just to complete one. And Ms. Hobson also put that link into the chat box. Today, we're going to be having you do a practice test. And then finally, we're going to just explain what a training test is, which is something you're going to be doing with your STs at the end of this series of test prep sessions. So we're going to be having you log into, and we'll give you that link probably on the next slide. I'll be putting it in the chat box, but we're going to have you log into the CAASPP website, and we're going to have you actually log into a practice test. Once you're logged in, you'll give us a thumbs up, and we'll cue you for that, but you'll give us a thumbs up, let us know you're in there, and then you'll come back to our slides so we can kind of work our way through showing you how to log in. And then you'll finish those tests with your scholars after we're done with our session, or as much as you want to do. You don't have to do the whole thing. You could do 15 minutes, set the timer, and just do a chunk of it. It's all about getting your scholar familiar and helping them be really comfortable with the format of the tests.
Definitely. Yeah. Even if you just look at a couple of them, every little bit of exposure, I think, will help out with knowing what you're getting into when testing day comes. So the very first step will be to log in to the CAASPP website. So it's really simple. I know Miss Lasley's going to put the link in for us, but www.caaspp.org. So it's pretty simple. If you will pull up your browser and go ahead and log in.
And I am doing that, but my spell check
wants to correct you.
Yeah.
That's okay. I can.
There we go.
Oh, there you go. Oh my gosh, neither one of us is not O-R-D, O-R-G.
Oh, did it correct it again?
Well, I corrected. I misspelled. It wasn't a correction. It was a misspell. My computer did not correct me. Try that again. www.caaspp.org. There we go. So you can copy that from the chat and paste it into your browser, or you can just type it in, because you can probably do better than me since I'm having spelling trouble. All right, once you get there, it should pull up a window that looks just like this guy here. And this is the little box that you want to look for. There's a lot of information on there, so I know that can be overwhelming as far as what do I check. We're just looking for practice tests today. So you'll click on the little green box that says practice and training tests, top row, third column over. So I'm going to keep going through the slides, but if you have any questions as we're working through, please stop me and let me know. I would like for everybody to be successfully logged in here. So let us know if you get hung up on anything as we go through. Okay, once you're there, you guys will be choosing the student interface practice and training tests. So the little green box with what looks to be an adult and a child sitting there working together. So if you will click on that, that will open up for you. Step 3, it's going to ask you to sign in. Now there's nothing you need to do here. The toggles, it's preset to guest user. It's preset to guest session. There's nothing at all that you'll need to do here. Leave everything as is and go ahead and click that little green sign in button at the bottom. And we'll do a little pause here for anybody who's having hangups. Let me know before we move on. We've got just a few more steps and I want to make sure we're all together on this. Okay, I'm going to keep going, but again, please stop me if you need to. All right, so step 4, also pretty self-explanatory, but just in case you want to select your own grade or your scholar's grade from the drop-down menu. There may be a time where you're doing a practice test with your supervising teacher. There may be a time in a special circumstance where you'll just click a certain grade level to get into a practice test, but not today. What do you click on to get where? At what step are you on what step are you, so that I can go back and make sure we get you in the right spot?
The first step.
Okay, so the first step is just getting yourself to the website. Are you that far? And then you'll want to click on that practice and training test tab there in those little green tiles that you see. So once you're in practice and training test, then you'll see a page that looks like this, and you'll be choosing the green box that says student interface, practice and training tests. So let me know when you're that far. Okay. All right, and then leave those toggles set to on for guest user and guest session. And just click the little green sign in button. And then that'll take you right in where you can select your grade level. Perfect.
And if you have multiple scholars, just pick one, because this is really just about familiarizing. You could even pick one that's in between if you want to have them kind of look at it together. It's nothing official. It's just about familiarizing with the test format and verbiage and everything else. So if you have multiple devices, you could have them each log in, after we're done with this, and, just follow those steps and have them pick their own grades. However you choose to do it, it's easy. We want it to be kind of relaxing and a gentle process.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay. All right. So once you've chosen your grade level, you will choose the practice test. So make sure you don't choose anything that says training tests. You can see there's the practice tests on the top, should be in pink. And then there's those training tests on the bottom in purple. So leave those training tests alone. We won't worry about those now. We're looking for the practice test. And you can choose whichever you'd like to do. You can do ELA or math. This is really it's a sneak peek. It's just a little bit of exposure, a little sneak peek into the CAASPP. So whichever one you want to go with, you can go into one and take a look at it, and then go back through and take a look at the other one too. You're welcome to peruse and just kind of see what it looks like and see how it's going to go for you. All right, so once you have chosen, excuse me, the practice test that you would like to take, you're going to choose your settings here. If there's anything in particular that you need to utilize, this will be the time to turn those settings on and see what that's going to look like for you. So if you have any sort of accommodations or any sort of tools that you'll be using, what's the word I'm looking for, Miss Lassie? I'm having a hard time articulating.
If your scholar has a 504 or an IEP, then you might have some accommodations or embedded tools that you'll be utilizing. And that's something you'll find out from your case manager. So what we would say is if your scholar does have a 504 or an IEP, please don't just check with your ST, but loop your case manager into the conversation so you know what to expect and what tools to be practicing with when you set your settings.
Thank you. And thank you, Miss Nate. It was designated supports. That's the word I was digging for.
Yeah, I got lost on that too. So yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, designated support. So if you're going to have any of those available to you for the test, this is the time where you would turn those on and then see what that looks like for you. And that way you'll get a more authentic look at what your testing setup is going to be once you get in. All right, so once you have chosen those, you can press select. And it's going to do a sound check. It always does the sound check. You can't get around the sound check. So go ahead and click the little button and it'll play you through just a few seconds. And then if you could play the video and sound, click that you could play the video and sound, and then click continue. And that will take you in to your practice test. So you'll get in there, you can look at instructions, you can go back and change test settings if you need to. Once you're comfortable and you're ready to go, you can click the begin test now to open it up. But if you would, whether you open it up or whether you hold off, what I'd like to do is bring your attention back to the Zoom room and our slides. We're going to go over a couple other things with you now, so that we can introduce you to some technology steps that we're going to have to take. And then once we're done with that, we'll send you back on your way for this practice test, so you can look at it as long or as short as you like. And then move on with your day. But this is a great time to just sit down and get a little bit of exposure to what that test is going to look like. But if you would come back to us now for just a minute, we'll go over one more thing and then we'll send you on your practice test way.
Okay. So we have a resource here, and Ms. Hobson is going to put the link to this resource in the chat box for you. And basically, the resource is going to give you a whole list of resources that we share each week. So in this resource will be the recording links to each of our sessions, which will be useful. Like for those of you that miss our sessions, we'll put the recording links in here, as well as the resources that go along with what we talk about. So we just wanted to make you aware of this and let you know that we'll be sharing it, and it just went into the chat box for you. So if you want to go ahead and click on that really quickly, just make sure you have access. I'm pretty sure we fixed the permissions the other day, but just make sure so we can change that if it's necessary. Give us a thumbs up or put a yes in the chat box.
I'll bring it over. This is what it should look like. Something very, very similar to this. And I see some little bubbles popping up. So it looks like you all are in the right place. Perfect.
Awesome. Yay. And the next thing, and again, these links are going to go in the chat box. We're also going to be sharing this slide deck with you though. So just know you'll have all these links, but the link, that first link is called the secure browser download. That's going to be all the details that you need to know how to download the secure browser, which is what you're going to use for testing, to your specific device. The next link, the network diagnostic tool, that's actually going to test your specific device to make sure it's compatible with the testing system. So that's actually, we probably should have reversed this. That's actually the first thing you're going to do. So you need to make sure, right, we talked about this before, you're going to want to make sure that you have a working camera on the device your scholar will use, and that you have a working microphone on the device that your scholar will use. So those are the first two big things. The next thing is running the network diagnostic tool to make sure that your device has all that it needs, bandwidth, etc., to be compatible with the secure browser download and actually getting into the system and running it once you got it downloaded. After you do that, you'll be downloading the secure browser. Feel free to go ahead and get that handled if you'd like to. We'll also be having a couple of sessions where we do that with you, and also a follow-up session after that with our tech guy in case there's some of you that have some issues. So if you go ahead and do that now, and you find you're having problems, just bookmark the fact that we'll be having a tech support session so we can make sure that we get that taken care of for you. And then something to note, if you have a personally purchased Chromebook for your scholar, the secure browser won't work, and you'll need to request a free, it's just for testing. It'll get sent out to you very quickly, but a free computer just for testing. The labels to return it will be provided. It's a very smooth process, but we want to make sure sooner rather than later that you have that device, that you're in the queue to receive one of those. So if you've purchased on your own outside of the school a Chromebook, please, 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 as soon as possible, let your ST know that you need to request a computer for testing. Other than that, the only other thing that won't work is an Android. So anything that's Android operating system based will not work. So you'll also need to request a computer for that. So right now we're talking a personally purchased Google Chromebook, any kind of Android operating system, or if you don't have a working camera or microphone, all of those would mean that you need to request a computer. So we just want to give you that heads up and then give you the tools to get this started early so we can help you however needed. So we are actually done, and then we're going to stay behind for questions. Ms. Hobson is going to put the exit ticket in the chat box, and this exit ticket is for our benefit as well as yours because it asks for your feedback. So what do you want to know? What do you feel we weren't clear on? Please be specific and don't worry about hurting our feelings. We want to make these really useful. And then finally, I just want to really encourage all of you to continue with those practice tests. And the why would be not just for familiarizing, but also for your sake to see where your scholar might need a little bit more support from you so that he or she feels confident when the day of testing comes. I had so many LCs, I mean, in all different homeschooling styles that called me or texted and said, I didn't want to do this. I was really kind of against it, but I'm so glad I did because we've done it 3 or 4 times, and each time, you know, he or she has done better. And it's also highlighted a couple of areas that we could review so that they feel more confident. And that's the whole point behind all of this, is giving your scholar the most strong sense of confidence possible. So thank you for coming today, and thank you for giving us your time. That is just such a precious thing, and we really value it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then we will answer questions in the chat box, or if you want to grab the mic.